saying. Work to the room.
All right. How many of you have been to ShmooCon before and have participated in Shmooganography? This has been a ShmooCon staple for many years. It is a crypto challenge puzzle that has Steganography challenge. So without any further ado, the last talk of the day, I'd like you to all to let's go ahead and make sure your mics are on.
Check one. Hello? Yep. Hey guys, sorry for the delay.
So please give a warm welcome to our Shmooganography builders.
Hey, thank you all. All right, so what we wanted to do today was to kind of give you a behind-the-scenes look of, how we put this game together, what some of the challenges we hit into, what's working well, what didn't work well, right? So, and this was ideally we're going to present it as a if you've never heard of Shmooganography in the past, we'll explain what that is as well. Okay, so. If you don't know who I am, I'm Will Newton. I'm just, a guy who, engaged in this community a long time ago through Bruce Potter. He actually hired me into the industry right out of college, right? And then I think 2 years later, he's like, hey, we're going to start this thing called ShmooCon. I'm like, ShmooCon? So, and essentially, a couple years into it, I was able to attend and then started thinking about we can, do something more fun from there. But ultimately, I have grown through the ranks in the industry that I'm in, do less technical things, more leadership type of things. And, this is a great way for, an outlet for me to kind of come back and still, stay technical, do the fun stuff, and engage on all you all. Mike, your path here is a little bit different.
Well, we did work. I'm not sure if this mic's working, but maybe we'll switch.
Let's use this one. There we go. Very deep. So Will and I have been working together for about 20 years, and our paths have overlapped quite a bit. ShmooCon was a key piece of why we worked together, but we, through our normal daily lives, we've been able to keep in touch. We actually go camping together. It's just other fun stuff. I am featured in his light show as one of the trees. I'm one of the voices. That's fun. Do a lot of masonry stuff. We both have old cars, but we're not here to talk about those things. We're here to talk about Shmooganography.
Yeah, so let's talk, what is Shmooganography, right? First, this is really just Steganography as we apply it to the conference. We stay away from cryptology stuff. We're not doing crypto. We're not doing anything like that. We really just try to hide things in plain sight. So for those of you who are new to this, right, that's all we're doing, but it's at various different levels, right? This is a multi-stage game. We start from least complexity, we're going up to more complexity. We actually have a team right now working on our 5th and final stage. But the coolest thing is that we get to interact with all you guys, all the people. We get to put these games together, these challenges together, and ultimately in the end present a contest and something fun, an event throughout this particular conference, right? And over time, we're going to kind of walk through what we have learned, but we offer prizes, right? And that seemed to be a good driving factor for a lot of teams. It's been a 500 cash prize since we started doing that.
Quite some time, thanks to the sponsors, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how did it start, right? So I mentioned earlier, right? Bruce hired me out of school. I started working with him and started learning a lot. And he started up ShmooCon with the Shmoo group and amongst many others, I'm sure. I attended ShmooCon 2 by buying a ticket off of eBay at that time. Was really impressed, right? Learned a lot, was very junior in my career, but I was just a sponge soaking these things up. The following year when, ShmooCon came back around, or just prior, I was like, Bruce, would you be okay if we put like a challenge together, some type of game? He's like, yeah, I mean, absolutely, go for it. So that's what I did. I did this solo. I haven't met Mike yet. And I ultimately, we came here and we put like I put a 3-stage contest together, right? I don't remember much from those 3 stages. There was some cryptology in there. So it wasn't just pure steg at that time. But one of the things, if you were back in the day, was there was this multicolored pen that's shown here that I took apart. Me and my family took apart 1,600 of these pens, put little slips of paper in between all the ink things in there, and then put it all back together, did a QA check to make sure they stood to work, and then gave it back to the conference so they can put them in all the bags, right? And all those pieces of paper had a code that would take you from one stage to another. So really cool. There were no prizes. There was no team registration. There was no tracking necessarily. And we wanted to, or I wanted to, certainly grow that from that perspective. And I think, Mike, I brought you to that conference at that time. I didn't tell him anything about the game. Nope. He had no idea that I was actually putting this thing on. Nope. He actually took a pen apart, what is this? And
he played dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, so I eventually went back to Mike and says, well, you know, I could use some help. We can really improve this game. We can make it more entertaining for, you know, for the audience, for the community here. And that's what we did. So we eventually moved to 7 stage, backed it down to 5, and we're going to kind of walk you through that.
Yep. So how does the game actually work? On our side, you know, or from your side rather, as the user, as the contestant, we actually kind of follow some old school, very basic sort of approaches, and really that's allowed us to focus more on the different stages, the actual techniques, a lot of which that we've developed ourselves, sometimes inspired from articles that we read, Hackaday, Ars Technica, other releases, things that don't necessarily align directly to the techniques that we do, but at least provide some inspiration. Some of them are very physical. Some of them, there's a lot of development that goes into them, but we'll talk about some of those throughout. But teams, typically, they approach us. There's a listing in the program. So you send us an email. We physically respond back to you. It's not a bot. And gives us an opportunity to get to know you. Actually, some of the teams have been participating for years, so we've continued that relationship. But then we do all the maintenance on the website as well. The program may also point you, if it's not a poster or something in your bag, to really how to get started. And if not, there's the website. So the website also is something that we introduced so that a team could F5 there instead of after they've worked their refresh button for getting the ticket. Now they can do it again for getting hints, for seeing how they're stacking up against the other teams, because we keep those all up to date as well. Each stage of the 5 stages that Will talked about is progressively more complex. Usually the first one's a little more physical, something that you will see, even if you hadn't looked at the program, you're just walking around the con floor, you see something on a poster, you see something in your bag, and it's pretty straightforward. But at each phase, each stage, you will get a code word and you'll get a clue. And sometimes those clues are better than others, and we've learned over the years that sometimes we think something's great and sometimes it's not. We'll talk about that. But each of those techniques is usually a little bit different. There's a little bit of association, but then it all starts to come together in how we actually roll out the game here.
I would say there was a little bit of a pivot there, right? So like as we moved from what I initially brought forward to the conference into like here, I was really worried like we'll put all this time into it, right? We'll do this for a year and we'll kind of see what the, you know, how engaging the teams would be, how engaging, like how many people would actually sign up and do this thing. And I think when we actually put the website up, which was a scary feat in itself, because again, not a reverse engineer, I don't do exploits, I come here, I like to hack, I like to make things work, right? That is really what I like to do. It's a lot of fun. I didn't want my website to get hacked, so it's like simplicity, and you know, and I put some trick stuff in there, and it has worked. It hasn't at least got hacked that I've seen. But initially, what's shown here in the blue, I mean, like we had, I don't know how many teams are there, but probably 14 to 16 teams registered, you know, one of those first significant years. So I was super happy, right, to see that this was going to be something that you guys would enjoy and it's worth our time doing.
And we also evolved, as you can see in some of the screen grabs there. The first, I think the blue is actually the first year that we did the contestant list and just showed you how far each had progressed, but then we started to realize some of the teams are actually stepping ahead because of one of the weaknesses that we'll talk about a little bit later is actually overlapping some of the mediums or resources involved with a given stage. They would actually confuse one for the other and they would just go in advance. Well, we didn't want folks to lose credit, nor did we want it to make it look like they had sped up somehow. So we actually added it out so that each of the code words gets its own white light, I guess, to indicate that something had been identified. But the nice thing, too, is that same email interaction, again, it's still us behind the scenes. If you get stuck, if you have a question, if you give us something you think is the right answer, we'll give you some feedback on what the real answer might be or how to get you nudged in the right direction. But then, as I mentioned with the hints, it gives us an opportunity to get everyone on the same page so you know where to go next.
But I think part of that's also we're trying to be fair. So if you guys ever think about hosting a game yourself, going through something, like how do you be fair to all your teams together, right? You do want to help. You don't want somebody to go down a wrong path, especially if we're giving out wonky clues, as you know, quirky as we can be in trying to theme this and all that, which we'll talk. Like we want to be fair amongst all the teams, so it's an equal opportunity, especially if there's a cash prize.
That's right. That's right. So we'll talk about what happens behind the scenes. So there's you know, some level of procrastination, but there's actually a lot of activity that pulls this whole thing together. It's not just the gameplay, there's a lot of logistics, and those are things that we've kind of learned over time. As I mentioned, though, we do spend a fair amount of time researching and ping-ponging different ideas. There's a lot of planning that happens the moment we leave here on Sundays. Maybe not this year, we'll have to talk about that. But on Sunday, on that drive back home, we're talking about, well, what worked well, what didn't work well, what do we want to do next year, new techniques, what are the themes? things along those lines, and then we start to think through those things and do a little bit of prototyping throughout the year. But then as we get closer to the conference, there's a fair amount of logistics that starts to step up. First, I think the thing that really improved for us is a lot more interaction with the podders, obviously, with the Shmoo group, all the folks that are behind the scenes that make this conference a success. They know what to expect from us, and then we've also learned from a few mistakes over the years. Maybe we don't impose too many requirements on them, where, hey, could you host this for me? Or, hey, could you put this in the bag? And it's kind of a last-minute thing. Trying to get ahead of some of that, but Heidi will tell you if she's not in the room. She does tend to have to remind us to give her like the paragraph and stuff like that, but nonetheless. The sponsorship also is a game changer for us. I would say the most expensive piece of running this contest is the hotel room. The hotel continues to get expensive, and it's higher than how much we give out for the prize. It's higher for the shirts. We started buying shirts through our sponsorships, but it also provides a lot more visibility. It pays for the posters, and it also pays for some of the equipment that we may need to pick up for some of the stages.
I mean, for the first couple of years, we were traveling here, commuting here from northern Maryland just to run this game, then to find a hotel that was maybe a mile away from wherever the other hotel, wherever it was being hosted, because it wasn't always here at this venue. Yeah. And then we would walk a mile with our equipment, and you'll see a picture of that later, but yeah. So being co-located is definitely a big part of it.
It also helps us interface with you guys, so we're not just some faceless organization. We run into a lot of the teams on the con floor, or at the party, or at some of the neighboring venues. And it gives us an opportunity to get to know you, but also a chance to kind of talk about some different ideas, talk about your experience, and get that hands-on feedback, because we don't have a booth. So there's not a place for you to come and check in with us. It's all via email. It's a great introverted sort of contest. But as you'll hear, it also is a good opportunity to meet some new people.
So I see that there's three major components if you want to host a game, right? There's the logistics, right? That is the major thing. This is the stuff that you probably don't want to do, you don't really care about doing, but this all needs to be done if you don't want to like burn your bridges with the folks who are going to enable you to do this. There's obviously then creating the techniques. So you have to go through, we have 5 stages now. We have to make sure we have the technique sound. It could be a low tech, mid tech, high tech, whatever it is, you still have to go through it all. And then it's deploying, what I call deployment. Deploying all those techniques that matches the theme, that matches the game. We don't, because ultimately we want to have some type of logical flow, right? And we'll talk about theming here in a second, but those are the 3 major components for this to work.
I think so in kind of feeding into theming a little bit is the added support that we've picked up. So while we may come up with some great techniques, I think over the years there's a few that we replayed a little bit. There's a few that we were able to execute, but maybe not quite the way we wanted to. We've been able to bring some other people in through the sponsorships, actually. So some of the sponsors that we'll talk about are employers and former employers. But that also gave us some reach into some other folks that had an interest in helping execute a game like this. But then also help us with things like graphics. My sister actually works out that she does graphic stuff on the side as well as part of her career. And she's been able to help us out with shirt designs, poster designs, and other things. It's just one more thing to allow us to focus on the execution of the game and make sure it runs smoothly. But why don't we talk about theming?
Yeah, let's do it. So we have rotated our themes. How about you switch to chart number 2 for a second for everybody here, because that shows all our themes kind of listed out. So one thing we wanted to do is to tie all these challenges in some type of logical flow. Maybe they tell a story, maybe they don't, but it certainly will identify, like, if you're playing our challenge and it's related to our theme, it's for our challenge, right? You'll be less... perhaps it would be, you wouldn't confuse it with the badge contest or maybe some other contest that's out there. Although there are overlaps, that does happen. And sometimes our themes tend to get pretty close, but we change the theme from year to year. Like, it's just something that interests us, from Super Mario to like all these games, movies. I think my particular favorite theme for several reasons was the Magic the Gathering, right? Mainly because of the posters. And I think I have one of the posters sitting here. It's undocumented API. And essentially, it was something, we have 4 different cards, but they were posters, but they looked like cards that kind of matched to whatever was going on with either engineering or something with ShmooCon. But if you turn it around, you actually see the back of the card, and you tilt it, you can actually read there's a message, written on the back of the card at an extreme angle, essentially, right? So that was pretty neat.
You can come check it out afterward if you know what you're seeing. But you can also, on the screen, you can see the like the little stripes of white. Those are the letters that if you tilt it down, I think online I saw a version of this that said Merry Christmas, but ours are a little more entertaining than that. For me, it was The Legend of Zelda. So if anyone was here for the Legend of Zelda year, we actually had built a console that was the Legend of Shmoo, and we actually took an NES ROM, had it hosted in RetroPie, and actually made some tweaks to it so that it actually became part of the one of the stages. You had to go to a certain part of the map, and then you would see how we had encoded some ones and zeros into a certain layout within the map, and that revealed a message. So that was actually kind of fun, but the one challenge is a lot of people were just sitting there playing the game, so then it started to interfere with one of those lessons learned, started to interfere with gameplay, so we ended up just giving the ROM out so that folks could run on their own computer.
Yeah, lesson learned, right? So if you have a bottleneck that there's only one resource all the teams have to use together, that's probably not the best idea. That's not going to work well. So we tend to have backup plans to a lot of these things. But ultimately, from a theming perspective, the theme ties into the posters. The posters are distributed. We usually just have 4, but it's distributed throughout the conference. Usually they're tied into the game, but ultimately what those posters do is they advertise, right? So they get people engaged. Mike said we don't have a booth. We don't, right? So how do you get engaged? Where do you start? Who do you reach out to? Who do I know to reach out to? All of the above, right? So the posters are really just that one-stop shop to get started. One year, though, with the Blue Man Group, we decided to create a video. And this video, I tried to, I wanted to advertise our Shmooganography game, but I also wanted to kind of capture some of the intricacies of, like, come to ShmooCon and what does it mean, like getting a ticket and that frustration. So yeah, we wanted to let's show that video.
Let's hope that the audio part
works,
given our IT challenges, but I'm optimistic.
It starts quiet at first.
It does.
Now let's review some of the elite hacker skills that you'll want to know
Go
before
Windows.
arriving at ShmooCon.
It's time to start.
Elite hacker skill number 1, get your ticket. Ready, go.
Now there's a little detail in this video. Let's see if you can pick up on it. Something's not quite right.
You're going to wonder why I can't get that ticket.
Yeah. How does someone usually refresh the screen? Oh, yeah. Oops. That was an oversight we noticed after the video was done.
Elite hacker skill number 2, engage the speaker. Ready, go.
So these are all slides from just different talks from that year, just general.
It was actually up through that year, right? So not just that year. It was all through. So we actually had a couple of things hidden in this video. One particular, these are all title charts, right? So one title chart in here was actually made up, and that was something you had to find and do your research, and that was something that had our message on it.
That's right. And I'll say it took months for me to get all those keyboard keys out of the basement. All right, who remembers Backtrack 5? That's a little bit of a flashback, yeah? And this is Will typing without error. How many times do you practice this?
Yeah, too many. I did speed it up, though, obviously, right?
You did.
I don't type
You
this
did.
fast. Not that I had a whole script and everything I was following at the same time.
Well, yeah, it's good prep. I guess there's an assumption that folks in the audience know exactly what you're doing here.
Smashing the stack.
There you go. It's kind of like watching nerd golf,
That's the best.
I guess.
I get bored watching regular golf. All right, we're getting close.
Bloop.
There you go.
There we go.
All right, so if you've been here for a while, you remember some of these shenanigans with this moose. They had these, the moose on stage, and it was actually with audience participation. And if you had any issues with what the speaker was saying, instead of throwing a shmoo ball, perhaps, I can't remember if there were still shmoo balls then, but it would light up red and make a horrible noise that you'll hear in a second. And oh yeah, there was, yep, this happened the year prior.
Yeah, at this hotel, yeah. We actually got to see it from our room. It was pretty fun.
And I think the rest of it just advertised.
I think so.
Advertises the game. So
The game, our sponsor, had that year. Praxis, one of our sponsors over the years. I think that's it. But this is actually a take on the song from Blue Man Group called
it's time to start.
Time to Start. There you go. So nice job.
So this was just a different way we try to advertise. This was very involved to do, so I wouldn't say this is something that we felt like was necessary from a advertisement perspective. I think the posters did their jobs, right? So, you know, if you're talking about a couple of introverts that's trying to get out to the community like you guys, which luckily it's like most of us are introverts, but we're all technical, let's put it that way, that's what I'm trying to say. It makes that barrier easier, but ultimately, you know, this was fun. But I don't think we created any more movies after this. This was the one.
No, you created another one. You just said you didn't want to use it.
Yeah, we're not using it. I didn't publish that one. That's yeah.
Well, we'll talk about the things that worked. Yeah. So over the years, you know, I think if we're talking about 17 games times 5 stages at a minimum, something along those lines. Yeah. It's a fair amount of work with minimal overlap. You know, sometimes we would reuse some parts of a technique. Some of the things you see pictured here, hiding things at different frequencies within a given IQ snapshot, or even in audio. So a wave file, we would actually hide things in higher frequencies that you couldn't hear, but you could visualize if you were to put it through a waterfall display or something similar. But there was a number of things too that we did that were just out on the con floor, which always comes with a bit of a pucker factor because you don't know who's going to mess with it. Thankfully, this is a very neighborly community. I like that term. I think we put things out and people just be interested. They'd be wanting to engage things. You know, the posters are pretty non-interactive, but things like the Twitter display and the Zelda console that we showed earlier, those are interactive and they work throughout the conference. Thank you for not breaking things.
We hear all the horror stories at other cons. You're like, oh man, what are we going to do here? But it's always actually been really good. It's been very well. So we haven't had any problems here. Although we'll do our due diligence, we'll ask others, we'll actually place, if we have something that's more expensive, like a laptop or something, but we need it part of it, like distributed down here, we'll take it somewhere like to Reg or somebody who can actually keep an eye on it.
That's right. Well, so why don't we talk about some of those techniques that did work. So we'll start at the top here, that Twitter display. So on the surface, in passing, it might look like that there's just some blue parts of the display there, and then there's actually a Twitter feed that's just being updated. Actually, I think we're just following the ShmooCon Twitter feed, and now X. This is obviously way back when. And actually, that wasn't the case. We had actually removed the polarization film for part of that monitor. So if you look at it, you don't see anything. But if you had a polarized set of sunglasses, or we actually gave out little pieces of polarization film, then you could see what actually was hidden there. And I don't think it was even dynamic. It was just some messaging that you had to then process, and then the message would pop out. We've done a lot of UV work over the years. And actually, the way that those were being done, there's actually techniques out there. On eBay, you can actually buy UV ink, especially if you have an HP or Epson printer, maybe some of the older models. So go splunking through Facebook Marketplace, find grandma that doesn't need her multifunction anymore, and then buy some of this ink and clean cartridges. And you can also print UV ink right at home. And then actually what I did then is ran it through a black and white laser, made sure everything lined up perfectly, and now you had something that looks overt as a printed game controller, but if you put it under a black light, some fun things pop out. You want to talk about some of the packet stuff, though? Yeah,
so I tend to look at, or I tend to put a stage together, usually it's a stage 5, that works on like some type of packet steganography type of thing, right? It could be packet, it may not be, it may be something different. What's shown here is using MPEG-4 and being able to, it's essentially a concatenation of JPEG images that are put together. And I found out if you actually, you can use the overflow a little bit, add some more stuff there, and it wouldn't actually deteriorate the original message, right? The original medium that I was trying to convey. It will still work. And I think that's the trick. Some of these things that we do, we have to kind of, if it's something that's proven or something that's been researched already and it's been published, then we can just recreate it, and it's pretty simple. For other things and a lot of the packet stuff, I'm reading RFCs and everything else to figure out, like, what if I hide stuff here? What if I mess with this? What if I mess with that? Like, does this really matter? Does anybody pay attention to this thing in the header field? And sometimes they work and sometimes they do not. Here it did. I was able to hide a message. The original medium has to work as it was before I modified it. That is the general, like, that's the rule. We can't break that rule. And it worked very well in this particular. So that elder being made from wood, yada, 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 all of that, that was actually a picture, not just the letters. It was a picture hidden within that MPEG-4 stream.
Right. Yep. We have some other things that we did. I think I mentioned the Ghostbuster containment unit. So that was one of those stands that you just want to plug a USB device in and trust it's not going to do anything funny, or that someone from the con plugs something in and just fries the board. That would be bad too. But thankfully, none of those things happened. The way that that technique worked is you would plug your USB drive in. It would, I think it actually formatted it just to play a little bit dirty, but it would take a picture of you, it would embed another picture within it, write it to the disk, and give it back to you. And then it was on you to take that image, pull the other image back out, and show it on your screen to the camera, and then it would give you the clue. Like, it was actually pretty involved to make that come together. It was also kind of strange working on it, flying back from a business trip with all these lights flashing and working on the plane, but it was kind of odd. Anyway, I think one of the other fun ones was the wormhole.
Yeah, so back in the Stargate era there, we had the black lights out, and I think we actually used the black lights that year. Sometimes we brought the black lights but never used them. They were just a decoy. Yeah.
Yep.
But that year, so we had them out, and I actually, let's see if I can describe, I couldn't find the picture. These lights were mounted upside down in a wooden structure, right? And this wooden structure would sit on a table, so you don't, you see the UV coming down, but you don't see the actual black light. It's kind of hidden under all the wood there. Well, I went ahead and hit a Raspberry Pi with all that cabling there that you see and did what's an Ethernet over power, where the Raspberry Pis from one black light could talk to the Raspberry Pi from the other black light that's sitting down the hall but across the hall in the hotel. Now, we were worried, I proved this out, that Ethernet over power, it worked at my house, but I was really worried it wasn't going to work here, and I did not have a backup plan of what I was going to do if it didn't, but luckily it did. It all worked. So on top of that, it wasn't just, because you couldn't see it. Again, remember, STEG, we're trying to hide it. It looks like it's just a black light. That's its function, right? So what you had to do is the player had to go up to one of the boxes. It was specific which one you had to go up to. I don't remember. And you had to knock on it 3 times, very distinctly. And then at that point in time, you had to run to the other box because it would send a message to the other box, and it will play a message. Now, it was supposed to be an audible message that you could not hear. It was octal encoding in the upper registers of that message. Right. But you could hear clicking noises. So that did give the teams oh, something's weird going on here. I should probably record that and figure it out. And they did. I think one of the Potter kids actually teamed up with somebody that figured it out. Yeah. So it worked very well. And I think one of the teams commented on the fact that they're just knocking on things everywhere to figure out where to do, because we give clues out of what to do next, right? Yep. Some more low-tech stuff, we had what's listed here is the bidirectional poem. You can read this forward. You actually read it backwards from the last line to the first line. It kind of brings a different meaning. We've done a lot of things in programs, right? So the first character of each line gives you the code word, or somehow we hide, we put purposefully spelling errors throughout our particular Shmooganography program paragraph, and then you can figure it out, and it tells you where to go. We've done all of that before, right? Spaces and tabs, I think we did that very early on. Yep. Added, spaces were 0s, tabs were 1, or it could have been the other way around. But in a text file, we'll just go ahead and and append all of that per every line, and you just kind of have to. It was really easy, right? Just kind of parse through there and extract it all. I heard recently through the news, but we kind of discovered this actually happened a while ago, that I think Elon Musk did something very similar, or his company did, somebody within his company, I think in 2009, in Tesla, yeah, that's what your notes say, where there was a leak, apparently. I can't vouch for the truth of the story, but this is the story. There was a leak within the company, and somebody was leaking out proprietary information, and they wanted to find out who it was. So they sent an email to everybody in the company. The email really had the same content, but the spacing between the words one space or two spaces or maybe three, I don't know, like those type of things. Like they were all different per email. So essentially every email instance to every person had a unique signature. So once that person, whoever that was, forwarded that email out to and then it eventually cycled around and got back to Elon or the IT team essentially, they were able to track down via that one signature who they sent it to find out who was actually leaking the information. So whether it was true or not, I don't know, but I can see the application that that is a unique way of using steganography in a corporate setting for trying to thwart those type of things.
And there are corporate solutions out there that are aimed to defend against steganographic techniques for leaking information. If there's images that maybe you had hidden information in and you send it through an email server, it reformats the image so all that steg is lost. That's been around for some time, but there's additional more different techniques coming out, or different tools to protect against that so similar leaks don't occur. But I don't think everything always works.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, clearly that monster of a desktop system there that we chucked back and forth a mile from hotel to hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't actually throw it over the bridge, but I really wanted to.
This was the pre-Raspberry Pi days, and if they were out, they had just come out, and we hadn't messed with them yet. But this, I think, that was the computer that hosted that Smoke Wi-Fi network that
That's right.
never quite worked.
Nope.
Speaking of,
Yep. So yeah, we had a few things that didn't work so well from a stage technique perspective, right? So that computer, I'll start with that first. I talked before doing packet manipulation. I wanted to do something with Wi-Fi, and I think it was the management, maybe it was the control frames within there, I'm not 100% sure, of hiding messages in there, and then actually doing replaying this particular package, this PCAP capture live at the event, so that the contestants would have to listen for it, download it, and kind of extract it. Well, that proved to be almost impossible when we got here. It worked, again, it was one of these situations where it worked at our house. When we come here where the environment is so contested, and then we had additional problems on top of the hardware. And remember, Wi-Fi at that time was not as robust as it is today. We don't have all the tooling we have today. It was I think we spent days trying to get this thing working here at the con and just no sleep, and it was very frustrating. So I know there was another one down in the bottom left. We had another sign that seemingly, if you just to the naked eye, all you would see is essentially the Shmooganography written right with all those little icons. But then you'll see cloth, the black cloth on the top and the bottom. You take a picture of it. It's in a shadow box. There's IR LEDs in there that would actually then emit that you could see a message being flooded through. It wasn't until we actually got it here and put together to realize those IR lights weren't strong enough to really show that message as clearly. So we went to every Radio Shack we could find in DC to buy as many more of these devices as possible.
it's 2012, so
Yeah.
there were still a few left. Yeah. There was a lot of walking, and I think maybe a taxi ride. I can't remember, but yeah.
Yep.
The next is then the center part of the Stargate. So Stargate gets a lot of attention, but it was a multi-stage kind of part of the contest that year. Given Will's light show fanaticism, we actually leveraged that same Vixen type setup that we saw demonstrated yesterday afternoon to control the lights in the event horizon of the Stargate. And you would actually be able to look at the blue lights and the white lights, and those sometimes they'd be ones or zeros, and I think they would spell out something. I don't think any team got into that at all.
No, it was way too complicated.
Yeah, it just didn't work. And plus, when we set it up, what the picture shows a black background. We didn't plan for that, so we actually talked to the hotel, and they gave us a black tablecloth so you could actually see the lights. So there's some things that you don't. It all sounds good until you start putting it together, and you're like, well, that's not quite working out.
Yep.
I think another thing that's bitten us too are overlapping techniques or overlapping media, as I mentioned earlier. So we've run into some issues where maybe we're using the same file to convey two different kinds of techniques. Maybe there's layered techniques, and if they're for different stages, that tended to bite us. Or it tripped up our teams, and it became frustrating for gameplay. And I think that's something that we learned over the years is we try to avoid that, try to keep things somewhat distinct, or at least make it very obvious that these are actually very different stages.
Yep. And the last one here is the poster here from the Blue Man Group theme.
Oh, right.
I think in the end, this was not necessarily a technique hack. It was supposed to be a low-tech thing. If you remember back in the day, the Blue Man Group had commercials with Intel, and they would have that do-do-do-do. This is actually tuned to those. It's really 3 notes that they, it's four beats total. That's actually tuned to that. We were trying to integrate it to the game, but it just deploying it to make it work and themed part of it just never came to fruition. So
you can try it. It's down here after we're done here. The other thing too is posters usually need to be done before we show up. Well, we did have a year, again, it was a Stargate year, where there was a mistake just printed into it, and there's no way to recover from that. You can't. It was difficult for us to reprint. These are usually done well in advance of the con, and we didn't realize it in our QA.
2 days in advance.
Yeah, well, we didn't have to tell them that. So let's kind of look back. So we've been doing this for some time. It's been enjoyable, but there's been good times and maybe less good times. But overall, it's been a very enjoyable experience, and I hope it's the same for all the folks in the audience that have been playing Shmooganography on and off over the years. I think overall the techniques were working pretty well, and if anything, they kind of folded together pretty nice into the theme of each year, as we talked about. But we are professional procrastinators, and I think we're probably not the only guilty ones in the room. But we know how to make things done or get things done under pressure, and I think overall it tends to deliver pretty well. But maybe some folks in the audience that are playing are like, no, they don't know what they're doing.
I think the one thing, though, that we keep asking ourselves, and I mentioned this earlier, is we don't want to put on a puzzle challenge, right? So again, we want to do steganography, which means whatever we hide the information in, whatever that medium is, still has to work as intended. We still have to deploy it. Ideally, there are times that didn't happen that way, and there's actually a time this year that it just didn't happen that way. But generally, we all have a backup plan, right? So if we couldn't deploy something in the way that we wanted to, such as that Wi-Fi example, we couldn't actually broadcast that live. So you can actually, it just looks like another Wi-Fi access point, and you gotta find it and collect it and figure it out. We gave them the PCAP file, right? You wouldn't just go out and find PCAP files of Wi-Fi stuff and figure it out. That's the steg, right? That's just not how it would be deployed. So it happens, but that's a component of and that may be specific to our game and our challenge for steganography, but that's one that's bitten up, and the techniques are hard, but sometimes the deployment is also hard.
And on the deployment part, the game management. So one of the challenges of having a kind of a manual person-to-person sort of exchange for registering, for providing the different stages, the different code words, is speed. It might be nice to have auto registration or some sort of automated form online, whether to provide code words, to provide just your registration. But we were also afraid of some sort of brute force hackery. So we try to stay away from that, just because it gave us the time to focus on technique development and to make sure we could put together as good of a game as we could. But we did talk about some different ideas, like maybe there's ways to introduce things like a text service, or maybe there's some LLM-based chat bots that we can introduce so that you can put some protections in there, and maybe it's even a little interactive to say, well, I think what you're asking is really this. But we're not that scale, I would say, in terms of our budget and time. The other part that we talked about, too, was a STEG research team. That was one of our lofty goals, one of those retrospectives on the drive back from D.C. We should set up a team in all our spare time to actually focus on the development of STEG techniques, which sounds great, and I think there are some teams. Are there any STEG development teams here? I don't think so. All right, so there's
I saw a couple of hands in the back, yeah.
So it's one of those areas that I don't think gets quite as much attention. In a way, this ends up being a good educational activity, I think, for all of us.
We're super excited when we go home, oh, we got to do this, and then we'll talk again for another 350 days. And we come back and be like, all right, we actually got to do this now.
Yeah, those are our secrets. Well, and some of that, and then we'll talk about the feels a little bit, because there have been some low points where we're like, why are we doing this? It's a lot of work. As our careers have changed, families gotten bigger, responsibilities have shifted. Life happens. And so we've had some shifting times where we're like, maybe we should try to hang it up. And then the other would start to say, oh, maybe we should hang it up. And maybe I would say, no, we'll keep going at it. But,
But I think the other challenge, though, specifically with ShmooCon, and there's just nothing to work around this except to, again, plan ahead, is that ShmooCon comes immediately after, Christmas, New Year's. Mike alluded, I saw Rob Joyce's, discussion yesterday. It was awesome, right? I do another light show. It's 40,000 lights, and that keeps me busy through December. So, this is a lot to kind of cram in the first or second weekend into January.
Yep. So we'll reflect back on some of the fond memories we've had here at ShmooCon. Given this is the last year, it is rather sad. It was pretty cool to see the Stargate immortalized. Everyone gets to take home part of the Stargate. When we were looking through the bags, I was like, that looks like corrugated plastic.
Yeah, you called it.
Sure enough. But who was here to remember, I think this was back in, 2008-ish? No, it was probably earlier, a little bit later than that. The mat. So the barcode mat. We actually had that set up outside of Reg. We gave it away as a prize that year, and it didn't come back. I'm assuming it's in a trash heap somewhere. But that was actually painted by my wife, and with some help from us. I think we chipped in a little bit, but that took a lot of effort, and then it just went away. But we thankfully got some pictures of it. That was pretty cool. A quick reminder of the some of the damage done by that crane accident. But we do miss the ShmooCon parties, though.
Yeah, it is. But we're doing things a little bit differently this year, or these past couple of years. I think all in all, we learned so much, right? I mean, just doing this, engaging with you guys, we every time we leave here, every time I'm going home, it's like, wow, that was exhausting, but man, I've learned so much, and just talking to people and engaging, and it's just a lot of fun. And I think our teams have learned a lot too.
I think so. And actually, working with Rob this year, he's like, maybe we should reach out to the teams and get some thoughts from them. So we did. And honestly, it was kind of hard to not get a little teary-eyed reading some of these, because it goes back to why do we keep doing this? And it's not just for these 4 teams. There's a number of new people that approach this game every year, having never done it before. And you can tell they enjoy it until they hit that wall. And you're like, well, yeah, that's part of it being a game. But then there's the folks that persevere and they continue through. Some have won, some have not. The trophy's kind of gone back and forth over the years between the teams on this screen. But I think the key part is it's educational. It's enjoyable. It makes you think about things a little bit differently. How do I hide information? How could I find information that might be hidden that I don't know to look for? And it's been pretty cool, just to put it simply.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
No.
We do want to thank a lot of the folks that have been involved in making this a success. So obviously the players. Without folks playing this contest, it's rather boring. But I think you guys have come to us with different ideas. You've even offered to help execute this game over the years, and we've been politely
we wouldn't do it if they weren't playing, we wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So we did want to highlight some of the teams that had been participating repeatedly over the years. Obviously, Bruce and Heidi have been phenomenal supporters of ours. Both in, Bruce built the black lights. He's toted that Stargate around, as many others have as well, and then chopped it up into little pieces. I know Heidi's been very patient with us in terms of us slowing down bag stuffing, at least that one year when we were manually stamping invisible ink into the programs. We didn't do that again. But stuffing things into the bags, getting our paragraph information at the absolute last minute. They've been awesome to work with and very open-minded in some of the different shenanigans that we've thrown at them. Then there's our families. They've helped us out quite a bit. You mentioned your wife helping to put papers into the blue pens. My wife helped paint the mat. I think we all got together and were weeding vinyl so that we could home make the first batch of shirts that we had made. We didn't do that again because that was a disaster. The shirts turned out great, and actually they still hold up pretty well. But and then our sponsors. I think when we were supporting Praxis for a while, they approached us and said, hey, you guys have a lot of good traction with this. It's an opportunity for us to partner up. And that really helped enable us to expand some of the game and some of the offerings, the prize especially. And then over time, that has shifted then to Lefco, and they've been a great supporter for the past number of years. No Starch Press, they also approached us at one of the conferences and said, hey, how could we get involved in your contest? And we actually worked it out with them that they're now the sponsor for each of the stages. So whoever's the first to win gets a No Starch e-voucher, which is
and they're still sponsoring us, even though they're not here.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
That's awesome.
Yep. Pardon?
Paul is here.
Okay,
Okay.
that's right. Paul is here. Yep.
All right.
So we'll turn it over to you. What questions do you have, if any? 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
All right.
Good
2
timing.
minutes.
Good timing.
Any questions?
What's next? That's a very good question.
I don't know if I can answer that one. I don't know. I don't know what's next.
Oh, I think what we have said is, while ShmooCon is coming to a close, we're not quite clear what might follow in its place, if anything. Maybe some folks in the room know some of that information. We had talked about bringing this to a B-Sides or some other activities, or just enabling another team to pick it up and run with it as well. Or make it maybe more of a corporate activity. A lot of the sponsors here have now introduced different contests, so this could be an opportunity to kind of pass the torch or maybe educate them on some of the things that we've done, maybe even give them some of the tools that we've developed over the years, because there's been a lot of work done over these 20 years.
But I think we'll retire the Shmooganography name. So whatever the
yeah.
contest goes, if we do something different, if we do something going forward, we may tweak it. It may be a little different.
Yep, absolutely.
Did you have a question?
How much do you see steganography as a
how much do we see steganography being used as like exfil outside of the government, right? So I haven't done the research on that specifically, but I mean, like that one example that I told you, it wasn't really they were trying to exfil out, you know, from the Tesla, you know, and they were trying to find somebody internal and using steganography to do that. But then if they're using steganography to do that, then you can just imagine they're using steganography to bring stuff out too, right? It's what are the tools that companies are using to detect that? And I don't think, I haven't done a ton of research in that particular domain or anything like that, but I wouldn't be naive to think it's not being done.
Yep. Was there one more? We might have time for one more. Would we consider doing other conventions? So I think "we" is probably the operative word. Because we did look at, we're actually skimming through the program. We're like, oh, look at all these other shows that are coming up. Some that I hadn't heard of, like ShmooCon, I think, up in Philly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of in our backyard of sorts.
Yep.
But it's not clear because it comes down to, like Will pointed out, time of year. Like this time of year is pretty tough. For us, it's the start of a year. For businesses, it is the end of the holiday season. There's just a number of things that start to get in the way. Maybe if we worked a little before the holidays, it wouldn't be as bad. But I think it comes down to that and just comes down to the support. So maybe interfacing with some of the coordinators with another event. It's something that we could talk about. Or if there was a team that is a regular at some of those events, kind of knows how that event runs, that could be an opportunity to team up.
I think from my perspective, like it's not like a definite no. But I think if we were going to do something like that, I would definitely build a bigger team of us up here to do it. And I think that would help. That would make it easier. So if somebody, I'm not seeking an opportunity to do it elsewhere. If somebody came to us, we would have that discussion, but I'm not actively like trying to find out where I'm going next.
That's right. We've all gotten older, grayer, a little heavier.
Well, I'm not grayer.
And I think time is one of those limited resources that we've come to appreciate in different ways over the years. Cool. We'll close on this. All of the slides for every year that we have executed are on our website.
Yep.
We have talked about trying to sell shirts. I actually have every year's worth of shirts up in my room. I didn't bring them, and obviously you've seen the posters. We don't plan to reprint those unless heavily convinced, and we could try to find a way to host it. But all the material's online, and if you have any other questions, you can reach us through email. Definitely appreciate all the support and for everyone who came out to listen to us today.
We'll stick around for a couple minutes up here if you want, but thank you all. We appreciate it. If you've been playing the game or played in the past, thank you.
Very good. All right, thank you.